Welcome back to another episode of More People, More Problems with
Ooh,
your beautiful host, Chelsea, and
oh,
myself, Brittany.
thank you.
Got another great episode coming in today. We ask you, as always, if you like this shit, like it. Like it on all the socials. Follow us, ask questions, engage. We love that. We're here to interact, so please reach out. Anything we say obviously will be confidential. I don't think we've said that in a while, but anyone new listening, obviously we come from very um, great and intense past of HR. Chelsea's still in it and I'm advising. And so we'll keep our stories private and anything we say will be, used with pseudonyms or made anonymous.
And there are opinions. They're not the opinions of our current or past employers.
Yeah, we have a lot of opinions and they're
Yes, saying.
ours.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, today we're going to talk about whether or not you should take that interview when you're either maybe happy, unhappy in your current role. And so Chelsea came up with this topic and I loved it because it brought me right back to my over a decade at Shopify and I never once took another interview. And I never did because, and I got plenty of offers if I'm being honest, but I never did because I thought it was a sign of loyalty. How could I go and get curious about something else? It meant that I was stepping out. I almost looked at it like a romantic relationship, which now that I'm out of that role and I've exposed myself to other opportunities and talked to you a lot about it, I think that that's a very outdated and almost manipulative kind of situation. I don't think it's a sign of loyalty, but I do think there's a lot of importance in how you do it. And this is where Chelsea, I think your skill and just knowledge on the topic, I'm excited for all of our listeners to hear because you've taught me a lot about it so far. So I'm going to pass it to you and get you to kick off. Is it
Okay.
a sign of loyalty? Does that matter?
Well, I would say no, but first off, I want to go back to your example for a sec because, well, thank God you never took an interview while you were at Shopify because Shopify was this beautiful unicorn and you were clearly extremely stimulated and, growing throughout the several years. And yeah, maybe there would have been something else, but I'm so glad looking back that you you maybe had that sense of I can't do it, I can't do
But to
it.
be honest, it wasn't always stimulating. I mean, I was there over 11 years. It wasn't always, and there was moments where I was, not being challenged and
Oh,
probably
there you
could have
go.
or should have in a way just to get more exposure. It might have actually taught me that the grass isn't greener on the other side. Like
Maybe.
there was some interesting pieces to that, but yeah, I guess the highlight is it wasn't always perfect. I don't think
It
any
wasn't
career
always
is.
perfect. So her Brit's thought back in the day when she was with Shopify was that you're not loyal. You're not loyal if you go. And that's really interesting that you describe it almost like a relationship. It's funny if you did actually akin it to a romantic a relationship, of course, going on a date with someone else,
Yeah, yeah,
not loyal. Like
terrible.
totally not loyal. Cheater. You know what I mean? So it's funny if like you were kind of doing the parallels between a romance and like, a work relationship which you shouldn't because work is work and
Agreed.
personal life is personal life, right? Two big different things. So I think your point that you mentioned about it's for me, it's not what you do; it's the how you do it, and the how you do it is really going to be based on your relationship with your employer and your relationship with your role, for example.
Yeah.
So people who are really really unhappy in their roles, maybe there's some interpersonal issues going on between colleagues or bosses, or you're no longer stimulated or you're no longer like um connected to the work that you're doing or the mandate. You might go about this a little bit differently, obviously, because there could be a factors that make you want to keep it a bit quieter. You were going
Yeah,
to jump
I
in.
was even gonna just say, like, let's paint the picture for the listeners because I think we can all picture when we were in a career and a job and we just hated it and we knew it
Yeah.
wasn't right for us. I mean, listen to last week's episode on talking about the different aspects of your life, career, like some of those questions. If you're answering no to those, you have no motivation, you're not feeling like it's driving your purpose, it's not taking you to that next level, you're unhappy, there's kind of a fork in the road. And I see all too often people just stay in it because, I mean, maybe number one, they need the money. They
Mhm.
can't even think to look elsewhere. Maybe they're lazy because they're not motivated and they're upset. Maybe they don't even know how to start it. So,
Mm.
what's your point of view on that? Like, what would you suggest if we're sitting on the couch and I'm, bitching about how terrible my job is, I'm unhappy. What would you encourage me to do when it comes to seeking other interviews, and what does that mean, and how do I go about it?
Well, I mean that you should absolutely have your career be fulfilling to you, and for the 8 hours or the 10 hours or whatever hours you do it throughout the day. And if you're bitching about it in the evening off of work hours, it's clearly affecting you. And now it's pushing into your personal life significantly. So for me, you obviously need to start looking at a change that's going to reinvigorate you, that's going to get back that peace. And also that's going to give you the balance too, because your balance is totally out of whack when you're disappointed all day at work and then you're all night thinking about how shitty work is and bitching about how shitty work is. Well, I think you probably need to look at making a change, right? Or maybe you're just a dick. Like I don't know, maybe you're just someone who complains a lot. But a lot of cases like an adjustment in your role, or sometimes leadership changes also help with this a lot, because it's not
Yeah.
always just you, sometimes it's someone else too.
Yeah.
But I would say you need to start taking a look at, are there other opportunities out there that are going to be more fulfilling to you? Like, you're obviously, you still need a paycheck probably. Are you going to get development? Are you going to get growth? Is that next step possibly going to be there? Is it going to fulfill all the things that you need? And you should start looking around. There's a couple of like do's and don'ts, I would say, in
Yeah. In this
very
situation, like, what would you like, I assume if you're not happy and it's due to, like, your team, the company, you're not gonna then broadcast that you're going to interview other
no.
places because chances are if you're not happy, people notice and they might be like, "Okay, she's, a risk to losing her and we or him and we wanna retain," or else it's like, "Oh, they're unpleasant all the time. Let's just fire them anyways."
Eh, and there's going to be some nuances here, private sector versus the public sector.
Yeah, fair.
You're not going to get fired in the public sector, like just because you're like a Debbie Downer or something like that, So,
I don't think
and
you get fired from the private sector just because 'cause you're a Debbie Downer, but I do think if you're, a toxic creep in the organization every single day because 'cause you're not happy and you're not making changes, there should be a conversation about it, and that might mean that you're exited whether you want to or not.
and in both cases, you can be exited. It's just
Yeah,
a matter of, like, how long does it take to
yeah.
exit you in the public sector versus the private sector. You can make decisions and take action
Good
rather
old red
quickly,
tape.
maybe before you get your next job, versus in the public sector, that's gonna take a lot longer. So you're
Yeah,
probably still gonna have a job before, and then you'll find your next one. But for me, like, I would say one of my things is transparency and honesty is typically the best policy. Now I'm going to caveat that, and I have two specific examples. One from years back in my career, 10 plus years ago. um, I was ready to move on. There was not going to be any more growth in my role, and I started kind of looking and applying onto other roles. One of them happened to be within my own department. Okay, so
ooh, that's spicy, isn't it?
yes, spicy, and I made a mistake with this.
Okay.
I made a mistake with this, although, like, it depends. My relationship with my manager was good, but she was a bit of a manipulator, a little bit vindictive, a little bit like, "When you need your next job, I'll help you get something, and, I'll do it for you, and you'll get what you get, and that'll be what's good." Um, and that was, like, just I was like, "No, no, I'll get what I'm worth, and I'll go out and show what I'm worth, and I'll do well." Anywho, I applied, and that's fine. You can apply on stuff. But of course you have to do a test sometimes with some of these things. So I
Especially in the
show up
government.
to do the test, and back then they were in person. Like, they were in big community halls, and there was like 200 people.
Is that like an exam room at university? Like, is that what it looked like?
Well, yeah, I guess in for all intents and purposes, yeah, like they'll rent out a big communal center or something where everyone can go and do the
Interesting.
tests. And this was like 10 plus 12 years ago. Anyways, of course, someone at my department
Sees
saw
you
me
there.
at the
Yeah.
test.
Well, weren't they there for an interview too then?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know them, but they know me because they know where I work, and it's like kind of like more high profile. They know my boss. And then of course, you know, so rude. Like, go in like 2 days later, "Oh, I saw Chelsea at so and so test." And then that catches my boss off guard. I hadn't told her about it because I wanted to see how I did. Like, I mean, it wasn't guaranteeing me anything just because I passed the test. There were still interviews, still references. Anyways, it definitely soured things. And I think I could have done it in a way that maybe gave a heads up, but I was not confident in our relationship that she was going to be supportive of me in
Yeah.
terms of my growth and development. It was going to be her first reaction was like, "You're not going to do well," or "Why are you going?" and or I don't know, and those were all her reactions, unfortunately, even though I went to the test. It was like, "Oh, well, if you don't pass it, it's fine. It's really difficult," and that. And in some ways that drove me actually to do as best as I could throughout the rest of the process.
Yeah. Did you come back and tell her, or did you get outed by
I
the other
got
person?
outed.
You got
I got
outed, so then you
outed.
had to backtrack and be like, "Oh, I should have told you," and it sullied the relationship a
I
bit.
don't think I ever went back and said, "I should have told you." I think I went back and said, like, I'm sorry, but this was like
An opportunity,
Step
I
step 2 in, like, a six-step process, and I wasn't at a position where I was ready to tell people. What if I didn't pass that particular test? Then there's no interview, then there's no references, then this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was my reasoning, but I think that she did feel like I was being really disloyal and I wasn't being forthcoming, but I really didn't feel confident in our relationship that I was gonna get any sort of support that would allow me
So would you actually
to be
change
comfortable.
anything you did? Like, shitty that you got outed, but I don't know if you would have gone to her prior and been like, "Hey, I'm going on this based on all that knowledge." Like, what would you recommend?
I know I'm being super airy-fairy with it right now, like, I'm kind of, like, telling myself I made a mistake, but then I'm telling myself, I think I did the right thing.
With the details that you had. I mean, the only thing that I could think is, like, maybe when she made you feel guilty about it, you would have asserted yourself more in regards to, like, "Listen, opportunities are coming up. I don't see a natural progression in this role. If you do, I'd love to have that conversation, but my priority is gonna be to extend my career and, like, my trajectory, so I will continue to go and look, and if you'd like me to update you when I do, I can do that going forward."
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah.
So, okay, so maybe I didn't make a mistake, maybe I was too young in a few senses, too young in my career and actually quite young to, like, have enough confidence in
Yeah.
myself to say that in that way. I definitely said things that I felt like were on my side or my point or whatever for why I did it, but I wasn't able to articulate it enough, like you just said, in terms of looking for my growth and getting you involved. And I wasn't smart enough at the time to properly manipulate the situation back into my favor.
Well, I don't even
Does that
know if
make
it's
sense?
manipulate. I think it's actually just, like, properly articulate your going back to another episode, like, properly articulate your self-worth and your wants.
Mm, yeah,
Like,
that is another episode.
it's like the funny thing you're making me realize as we chat about this, so I used to make people feel guilty. Actually, I never had to worry about it. Shopify was like a rocket ship. Everything was going so fast. Opportunities were plentiful. No one was looking elsewhere unless they were not succeeding in their job. And in that sense, I was like, go find something else because then I don't have to have this hard conversation, which isn't right, but that is probably what I was thinking. But then as we grew and we scaled, things started to kind of, slow down. It wasn't that same speed of growth. So opportunities weren't as plentiful. And what ended up happening in some ways, I think it happens at every large corporations, is that new people coming in are more attractive. It's kind of like the new dating, we're talking about it. Like, it's more
Mm,
attractive. So sometimes they get higher salaries or they get bigger packages to come in. And people that have been there a long time are like over here waving, being like, I deserve more. I want more. Like, recognize me. And so later on, I used to say to people, go take that interview. Like, take it, figure out what the salary is, figure out the role looks like, see what it is there, and compare it to what you have. And let's have a conversation. Because maybe you are getting paid wrongly, or maybe your role should be bigger. Maybe we should take on a new challenge. Like, it's context to then build. But if I'm being honest here, it's cheeky because I said that with probably the underlying belief that if you go take that job, like, I would be upset by it, like a loyalty underpinning, which I don't know who built that in me with a career, but I definitely had it on myself. And whether I verbally said it, I kind of imposed it in my views.
like, if you go take the job or the interview?
No, I was kind of at a later point, I was like, take the interview, but use it. as information to better your career here,
Here,
like, it was
here.
like, it all ended with
Yeah.
here, and if you were gonna leave, then it was,
You're dead
ooh.
to me.
Yeah, well, not that serious, but it was like, I had beliefs. I don't have those anymore.
Interesting.
I think that work is an agreement between 2 people, the organization and you, and obviously there's a lead, there's all these components that influence it, but there shouldn't be, like, it is commerce. You're providing a service and we are paying you for it. And if it's not matching up, like, it shouldn't be a loyalty thing.
No.
I think the loyalty comes in from the startup environment because you're building so tightly alongside and it's like your baby, this company,
Yeah.
that it does become a loyalty aspect. Um, and
And
so,
you form these relationships with
yeah,
people when you're doing big things, right? Or
yeah,
you're going through difficult things. I mean, I joke all the time that I've got some colleagues that we've trauma bonded
yeah.
over difficult leaders or over difficult times in our
That should be an episode,
organization.
the
And like
trauma
so
bond at
yeah,
work.
like trauma bonding at work, that might have to be an actual episode because it's a true thing. Because I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day on a
How do
side
you
note
do?
about a difficult individual that I was, having to have a conversation with. And the conversation wasn't difficult. I just had so much trauma from having dealt with this individual before. I spoke to my colleague and I said, "Man, I always come off these conversations like stressed out and thinking about it all night. There's nothing to worry about. Like they're not in my, you know, everyday life anymore, but like." And he's like, "Yeah, like, we're trauma bonding." And I was like, "Yeah, it would be hard for me to, like, lose my trauma bond friend, like,
Yeah.
for example, if he was
Well,
like,
and
"Oh,
I
I'm
think
I'm
that
out of here."
that goes back to the deeper relationships of, like, loyalty and everything. Whether we talk about a romantic relationship, like you said, going on another date is cheating. It's also like talking about best friends. Like, if we're all together and I go to you for all these things and we're spending time, and then I go and meet this new friend and I'm like courting them, there's jealousy there, there's envy, like, I don't like, it's a deep relationship
That's
that you
so
care
funny. It's
about,
true.
that naturally our emotions come into play. Whether they make sense or not is another
Yeah.
question, because usually emotions are anything but logical, so, like, let's acknowledge that, but there is emotions. I think my flaw in this was I let the emotions drive my behavior instead of
Mm,
logic, and I
mhm.
don't think I was any worse off, like you said, I think I really benefited from it, but I think I'm the outlier. I don't think
No,
that's the normal.
no, I actually think that it's maybe just a sign of that step of growth for in yourself that you hadn't taken yet. Like if we're talking about self-worth and that, are you bringing it onto yourself going, "Well, what's not good enough about me? What's not good enough about Shopify that you need to go somewhere else that you need to
Yeah,
test it out?" Like is like so I'm not all putting it on you, but like I could see how like you've evolved over the years and like you see that your maybe opinion on it has changed and you've said that this commerce, this is a relationship, it's a give and take. I don't owe that job anything but respect and the
I was gonna
best I can do for my, the work, and they're going to give me a paycheck for it.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, my interests have to fully align with me, like not the interests of the organization. So if it's with now another organization, it's how I do that now, not
yeah.
what I do, right?
Well,
So
and another caveat, like, we're talking about one interview. Like, we just said in that sentence we both kind of went to, like, you're taking another job, but let's just take a breath. An interview doesn't mean you're getting the job. An
no.
interview is like a first date. Do you know how many first dates I went to and I was like, no fucking way. Like, it's it's the littlest thing to meet a new person. And so I think I also went from 0 to 100 in the past of, like,
Mm,
and maybe that's overly confident in some weird ways. I think it was more naive actually, but it was like, "Oh, if I take that interview, then I'm gonna be done." And it's like, no. Like, an interview is
so
getting
many
to know
things.
someone and getting understanding of a role and whether that's intriguing to you, especially the first one.
Yeah.
It's so different. And so, we're going into all this stuff, but I'm gonna bring it back to you. So how would you say to do it right? Like, I agree on the respect. So it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So how do we do it right? What do our listeners need to know?
So I do like transparency in most cases, and like I said, there's different factors in the environment that help you to feel more confident in being transparent. Now, I'll give you another quick example of one that happened to me a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. where I had a completely different example. A process came out. I kind of thought about it for a second, but it was actually my boss that came up to me, my boss at that time, who said, like, you should do this. Like, you need to apply on this. You're ready for this. This is your next step. And I was kind of coy about it, toying around with it, going, no, I'm really happy in my role. Like, I could see myself doing at least another year here. Like, and she came back and she said that this might not come back around for a while. So you need to go and do this. Like, this is all you. You're ready. You're going to. I said, listen, I'll give it a go. Give it a go. She supported me throughout the whole time. I said, yeah, I screened in, and she was very, very happy for me. Oh, I'm actually going to get to the interview. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I was all self doubt, kind of like, we'll see. It's a good practice shot. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, no skin off my back. I've got nothing to lose here because I'm happy. And she's like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to nail it. You're going to get this. And I was transparent throughout, but also, like, she allowed me to be transparent. She
Yeah.
allowed me to feel really, really comfortable in my transparency, that she was going to receive it well. She was also given the opportunity then to think about a succession plan.
Yeah.
If there wasn't one already in place, then think about, like, when might I be leaving, knowledge transfer, all those things to help the operation keep going. Um, if I were to succeed in this, and she seemed to have more confidence in me than I had in me about whether it was going to work out or not. So
She sounds
it,
like a wonderful, like, leader and mentor. Like, this
she,
seems like the perfect situation, which
she
I
was.
would argue it's probably
They're
not this perfect most of the time, but I love
they're not
this
always.
version of, like, this is what it could be.
This is what it could be. She knew that that was going to be my next step. She knew for my own growth
Yeah.
that this is what I needed. Like, I couldn't stagnate in the same position role for X amount of years. And that this wasn't going to happen again. So she was really looking in my best interest, but also in her own interest, and thinking more holistic about the organization, because this was actually a
Yeah.
process put out by the same organization that I was working at. This organization gets to benefit from Chelsea in this role now.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? If we're taking the bigger
And
picture,
that's
she also had the
probably a little different,
organization.
which is exactly that. Like, it's the organization as a whole. And so I think there's a difference between leaving a company and staying within the company in a new role.
100%.
Um, because I think the scarier thing for individuals is to get a call or an email or a LinkedIn note saying, "Hey, we caught you on LinkedIn. You seem amazing. We're interested in hiring for this new role. Would you be open to a conversation?" And that's where, for me, I would cut it off. And I know a lot of other people too that are like, feels good to be wanted, but like, I can't do that. And I think what we're
Ooh,
saying here is you can. And the way
yeah,
to do it is if you're stuck and there's no more movement, like Chelsea just said, I think even like a leader encouraging and full transparency and support and a conversation on how is this going to work best for you and myself on timeline? When should I start? What should I finish up before I go? How do I knowledge transfer for the new person? But I think that that's even further on in like the job. I think
sure.
otherwise, I would even just say if you get an email or a note and you're intrigued in the opportunity, you should never feel shameful for taking a first call. I don't
Absolutely.
actually think, in my opinion, if you take one call, I don't think anyone deserves to know besides the people you want to tell for support in the conversation.
Sure. Yeah, and that might be your boss, it might be a colleague, it might be someone completely different, whatever the case may be. But and I think, like, the scenario that I just said, even if your boss isn't encouraging you to leave, right? I mean, that, like,
That's so funny.
nobody really wants, like, say you're a superstar player, like, nobody wants them to go. But if you actually have a lot of trust in your relationship with that individual, like, and they're not actively sending you, "Hey, go and apply on this." I mean, that would just be weird too. Um,
All these
then
jobs. Hey, there's a new one every day. Hey,
yeah,
there's a new
every
one.
day.
You're like, are you trying to
Like,
tell me something?
trying to get me out. I think that even if someone's not saying, like, "This is for you, you need to go and do this," if you have a trust in in your colleague or in your boss, whatever the case may be, you have that relationship, you feel supported, you feel comfortable, you will likely feel inclined to be
Yeah.
transparent about it because you expect the type of reaction from them. They might be upset, like, "Oh my god, it's going to kill me to lose you and it's going to be so hard for us, but this is actually amazing for you." Like, that's the type of reaction you want. And I think that that transparency is for sure going to be super key when it's another role within your organization, because shit
Yeah.
gets around.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Agreed,
I've
agreed.
just given you a couple examples
Yeah,
where it gets around,
yeah,
and you kind of have to, because someone's going to find out
yeah.
somewhere and tell someone, and
I
someone's going to
agree.
be hurt or annoyed, or it might not be about you getting another job. It might be because you just weren't transparent about it, and
No, I
that's
mean,
a
no one wants to
trigger.
hear something it feels like it's behind their back, especially
Yeah,
if it's in your own house, you
sneaky.
know? Whereas I think that if it's outside, it's a little bit of a different story, and I think that first exploratory call, it's up to you. I think if it goes further than that, I think the if you respect and you're on good terms, I think it's beneficial to then have a conversation with your lead and to say, "Hey, I just wanted to make you aware there's a really cool opportunity at company X. I've met and just got more information. It intrigued me enough that I want to go meet with them." Um, if it's a higher level, I mean, say it because your current organization might be like, actually, we can compete with that.
You
I
never
think
know.
that, like I think it's a fair conversation. I think when you come in at the end, when you already have the job offer and you're taking it, it puts the current company on the back foot. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, you've made a decision. Whereas if you come in early and you
there might be a
actually say,
chance.
yeah, I think it's fair. Like, I think it's fair. And that's actually as an individual, like the fair market that you want to have a conversation around, which is
Yeah, I like that.
don't be so insular in like what you're doing. Expose yourself to greater knowledge, opportunities, etc.
I think that's like a huge point, actually, the internal versus the external, and the chance for a conversation, and not a conversation in that, don't go, like someone's guilting you into staying
Yeah.
or whatever. The conversation that, you never know. If I were going and it was for another level, a higher level, my boss might say, actually, we've all been talking about that you're performing at a higher level. And we've actually been talking about this role for
Yeah.
you, which
Yeah.
might be a good opportunity for you. Do you want to start talking about that? And then you can decide what's going to be best for you. Because you might actually not realize, because conversations happen with senior management about folks, and you're
Yeah.
not necessarily in the know until
Yeah.
it's starting to push down
You
that
might
route.
you might trigger that. I think the other thing too for like leaders or managers on the other flip side that are listening, if someone comes to you and says, "I'm going on an interview or I'm exploring," don't get defensive.
Yeah.
Don't think it means that they're done with you, that they've done
Don't be
something
mean
wrong.
to them.
Because yeah, don't be mean. If you do that, you've lost them.
But
So
yeah,
I would like
they're
take a
gone.
minute, get curious, like why did you feel the need to go look? Like what were you looking for? They might say, "Oh, they just came to me. It sounded so cool. I couldn't pass it up." Or they might say, I feel stuck and I have no opportunities. Or they might say, our relationship isn't great and I would like to like give them a chance, get curious,
Yeah.
don't get defensive, and then give yourself a moment to think about what does this mean? What does this extra information actually, you know,
What can I do
allow
with
you to
this
decide?
information? Is there anything I can do with this
Yeah.
information? And it for sure depends on what is revealed to you. If someone's saying like, I think we both know that our relationship hasn't actually been fantastic over the last year. I think we've both been trying on both ends to improve that. But I'm going to explore some other areas where I can make sure that I've got a more solid employee employer relationship. It might be an ability or a time to possibly mend and to have more open dialogue about it, and it might not, and that person might say, "You know what? You're probably actually right, and there's just something that doesn't hasn't been clicking for us, and maybe I am encouraging you to go and look at those other
You know what I'm
opportunities that are gonna
realizing though,
fulfill
Chels?
you."
Every time you've gone, have you got the job? Because I just was thinking, like, to flip this on its head. Like, let's say someone comes to me. I'm thinking about when I was head of talent, and someone I really trust that's so critical comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to like interview for this role. Let's say it's for chief HR somewhere, chief talent." And I'm like, okay, like, can I get curious? Get curious. And they're like, I love it here. Everything's great, but I really want that head of role. And so I'm going to explore it. And they're like, but I'm committed until like I go, I'll keep you posted. And I'm committed. Naturally, I would have to start thinking about a replacement. I
Yeah,
would have to start thinking about, okay, they're checking out or else they wouldn't be looking. Maybe that's my bias, but I would be like, they want something more. And so if they don't get that role, what is the repercussions of that? Like, what is the repercussions of being honest, transparent, respectful, but then not getting the role and you're stuck in your current, like, have you been disregarded a bit? Like, it's different if you decide to stay. You go and you take some calls and you're like, "It's not good enough. I like it better here." It's almost more validating to your boss because 'cause you're like, "I'm in it. I'm here."
Yeah.
But there's this other kinda dark side.
You tried to get it, but it didn't really
Yeah,
work out. I I can't think of a particular situation where it was in a job, didn't get it, and I had full disclosure, and then they found out I didn't get it, and then it was weird. But I relate it somewhat, and I think a lot of mothers out there might agree with this. When you finally reveal that you're pregnant and you're going to go off work, you know,
yeah,
in 3 months or 4 months, and then they're automatically thinking about who's next, what's next. Don't give them any projects. Don't give them
yeah.
anything
You've
meaningful to
been
do.
taken off.
They're just gonna leave. And oh, we were looking at a hiring coming up soon. No, 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 God, no, don't. That's super discriminatory. Not for that person because they're gonna be off for a year. So like we're not gonna be able to fill our immediate needs. So I think that and I'm thinking more from the employee perspective of how shitty that feels when you start to be treated like, um, you're about to expire soon and,
Yeah.
we'll
Well, I
get what
think
we need
naturally
from
you're
you,
head
but
on.
not
Like,
much.
if you're interviewing for other companies, if it's not this role, I'm going to assume that the next one that comes up, you're going to take it. So there is an expiry date. And when I think about the business and what I need to get done, it's now really not personal. It's just based on the role. And so I think this is what makes it so hard and so nuanced. It's like, do you tell your boss that you're exploring it and then kind of leave it off until you know it's going to be a thing? Like, it is hard.
I mean, it's hard and also, like, a lot of this is gonna depend on your own integrity, your own accountability, and your mental state when you're heading out. Like, and case in point, if you remember when I took on this role, a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, my last day in my job was a Friday, and it happened to be my birthday weekend. We were at the cottage,
Yeah.
and I worked straight until about 4:30 or so, and then I was still getting phone calls at 5:30, and then, I was taking them like, I was fully committed still to my job. Like, I hadn't checked out, I hadn't gone like, "Woo, well, fuck it." Like,
Yeah.
next week I'm on vacation, the week after that, I'm outta
In a
here,
new
like
role.
I'm in my new role, so who the hell cares? Like,
Yeah.
I was still fully committed to my job right up until the moment of I clocked out, and then that's still the following week. I was on vacation, still had my laptop with me. I was fielding emails, making sure that things were still running. Yeah, there was someone else who was taking care of me, but I was fully there to transition and support.
Yeah, you're
So it
making me
depends on
realize
the person.
yeah, but you're making me realize, okay, so this would be my tangible feedback to
So much
someone.
feedback.
Um, no, but it's like if I was still head of talent and someone came to me and said that, the things I would want to hear is one, I am committed to supporting
Yeah,
you and the company and the role
don't check out.
until we have the proper setup and like plan going forward. So even if I get this role or I don't, just know like my priority is to leave this in a better spot than when I joined. And so I'm not going to fuck you over. Like
Yeah,
that's number 1. Number 2 would be this isn't personal, like this is for a career progression. And so because you're in
be
this role,
honest.
there is no way where for me to go. And unless that changes and I see that, I'm going to continue to explore outside opportunities when the time is right so that I can get there. Like I think the feedback or like the advice is get really clear on you on what you want. If it's a terrible company and you're in a terrible role and you're looking just to get out, I don't think you owe it to everyone to give them all this explanation.
No.
You're not you're trying to get away. If it's a great relationship, if it's been a great like ride while you're there, I think show up with respect, get really clear on what it is. Is it just that you don't want to work at the company? Is it that you want to progress in your career and that's not available here? But you can have that conversation so that if something does come up, you might stay. Like, show that you're willing to support and take care of everything before you go, you're
Yeah.
committed. I think that the conversation would be better and it limits the chance of kind of tarnish of, "Oh, I didn't get the job and now I'm still here, but I don't wanna be here," you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly right. So keep being accountable for your role. You're in it. You're
Yeah.
in it until you're not there anymore. You're 100% in it. You're not a liar. Don't be a liar. Be honest, be truthful, state the facts, Don't burn bridges with anyone because God forbid you need a reference from them later.
Yeah.
That's going to be awkward. Not going to be there anyone to support you. So be a bit smarter. One thing I would say is don't broadcast. Don't broadcast to the whole world either. You might tell your boss, or you might not, depending on the situation, but don't tell your colleagues. Shit gets around.
Yeah.
Don't put it on social media.
I
Like,
mean, come on.
seems weird to say that,
Imagine,
but
like, live streaming, you're, like, walking up to the interview, like, "Got an interview at Facebook, look at me now."
do you know how hilarious though the funny things is that people do stuff like that and then they write a blog next, I got fired from my job because they saw that I was taking interviews. No, it's because clearly you have a lack of judgment and you're a fucking idiot at that point. But the other thing I would say too to folks, like, don't forget, time and resources are of your companies. If you're going out searching and doing
Yeah.
other things, that's your time. Those are your resources that you need to be expending, not the job that's currently paying you.
AKA
Um,
don't go searching while you're on the clock, like,
yeah,
very
like,
simple,
that's
do it on
just
the weekend.
tacky. That's
Yeah,
tacky. And another thing I wanna mention too is sometimes you might need to check with HR or check your contract, check your letter of offer, check your
yeah,
collective agreement, depending on who you work for. You might have a non-compete clause. You gotta be careful about that. Make sure you're not making any boo-boos if you get too far down the road. You might have a conflict of interest clause. Um, you might have just gotten, if you're in the government, you might have just gotten back from maternity leave 3 weeks ago. And as we know in the government, you get a nice top up when you're on maternity leave, but you are meant to be working for a year afterwards to help pay back that top
yeah,
up that was given to you. So if you now decide not to go to another federal public service employer, if you try to go to a separate employer, you could be on the hook for paying back some
yeah.
cash. So you might want to be informed.
Yeah, no, those are great tips.
Oh,
Great,
thanks.
great tips. I hope that everyone listens to this and goes, there's no shame in my game. Like, if I'm interested and there's an opportunity, like, go get
What?
curious. That first call, that exploratory, like, take it. Ask the questions. So, what are you paying for this role? What does it look like? Tell me more about the company. Utilize that to make your life and your career better. And when you get to the point that you feel you should respectfully disclose, do it in the right way. But I think there's a big difference between that first interview or call and actually going through a process. So
Yeah.
I would very much, separate those two and decide accordingly based on those.
Yeah, make a judgment call based on all the factors. It doesn't mean just the examples Britt and I gave are yes or
Grace.
correct or
Yeah.
accurate. We might have made some mistakes, we might have not, but the nuances are very important. So,
Yeah. No shame in the game. Go for
no
it. I
shame
wish
in the
I
game.
had like,
Also, I wasn't doing a gang sign earlier, if anyone was
what
asking
were
when
you doing?
I got excited.
What
I
did you
don't
do?
know what I was doing, but it wasn't a gang sign. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I was like, "What?" Like.
Just look like a loser. No, just
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Brett. Really kind of you to say that on
oh, love ya.
national television. No, I'm just on YouTube.
You
Okay,
know what show I'm watching that I'm obsessed with? The
what?
morning show. Oh,
What is
it's
that?
rife with HR
What is the
stuff.
morning show?
It's with,
Is it like a talk show?
Reese Witherspoon and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and Jennifer,
Oh,
her
yeah.
name's Right? From Friends? Katie, yell
Jennifer
it in the
Anderson?
background. Yeah,
Jennifer
Jennifer
Anderson?
Aniston. Katie yell it in the background, her favorite show, Friends. Anyways, it's so, so, so good. We'll talk about it in wine time, but
Wine
it's
time.
really good.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna have to tune in then.
Okay,
Wine time.
pause. We'll be back for wine. Okay,
Oh,
we're
how
back
lovely.
for wine time. Chelsea, you got
We're
a
back.
special treat for us.
Oh, this is a first for more people, more problems. And I'm proud to say it gets to be me who gets to do a live pour from a box of wine. Yeah, this puppy, 3 liters, four
What's the
actual
wine? Wayne
bottles.
Gretzky?
It's a Wayne Gretzky signature white,
Huh.
they say. Okay. And I got this puppy for New Year's, but we didn't even end up cracking it because everyone was drinking bubbly and cocktails and that. And then I saw it in my basement yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, I got a full box of wine. And so I cracked it, obviously. Catherine
Exciting.
came over for drinks and dinner. So we had some of the box. And apparently, this bad boy stays fresh for like 6 weeks, Katie was
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes. I know. Okay, let's live pour it.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
I want to attempt to do the live pour so you all see it and try not to spill on Brett's couch.
Yeah,
as
please don't.
oh, it's difficult.
This is a little
Oh, it's
lackluster.
difficult. Hold on. It's a bit hard to do at one hand, and I'm not gonna lie. I wish I had someone here who could help me do this.
Katie. All we hear is her laughter in the background. This
This is
is
difficult.
so awkward.
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay, well, if you're not viewing this on YouTube and listening, you
Oh
should
yeah,
really go to YouTube
I
now
got
at
it.
moment around
I
39.
got it.
Because
Don't
did
worry.
you get it?
Yeah, I'm live pouring as we speak. Sorry, hands are in the way. It's happened.
Woo!
I've got a live pour that's just happened. That's a first. So, for anyone who's interested, this lovely little box of wine, like I said, holds 3 bottles essentially. You know, it benefits the Wayne Gretzky Foundation. So, true story. And it's crisp and delicious, apparently refreshing with aromas of peach, apricot, pear, and hints of lemon.
Oh,
It's actually
sounds good.
it's nice. It's like it's a good little wine. It's not like a cheap, garbage bottle. Typically, I once in a while I might get the little Wayne Gretzky wine because it's available at most places because it's like a Canadian wine.
Yeah, there you go. Where does he make it, do you think?
I
In
think it's
Canada then?
Niagara. I think it's Niagara, right?
Oh, I think you're right. I feel like
Pretty-
Katie's been there. Okay,
She's
so give us
probably
a
on.
review. You read the box, you live poured. Now sip it and tell us what you rank it. It's a slow build.
You know what? It's not. It's a slow build. It's not bad. It says it's a signature white, so it doesn't like class it as like a Sauvignon
Yeah.
Blanc or like a Riesling or anything like that. But I would say it's like somewhere in between.
Okay.
Sorry, in between a Sauve and a Pinot Grigio. So it's like not super sweet, but it's not like crazy, crazy dry. Maybe that's what the name that they give. Apparently, you can eat it with crab salad. So that's like,
Okay.
everyone got a crab salad laying around. Like, this is going to be
You don't have one of those left over from New Year's?
clearly your friend. Yeah.
I
My
was like a month later, like,
I'll give it a 7.
oh,
I'll
wow.
give it a 7. And because, like, and I'll give you a 7 for a lot of reasons. Okay. Because, like, box, amazing, first off. It's got a little spout, amazing, also. It stays fresh for like a million years.
I don't get how that happens.
But I don't know because no air
Yeah,
actually gets into that bladder inside. And I
yeah,
think that's what the thing is that you're not opening a top like of a wine bottle and then you keep putting air in it. Ain't no air going in here.
yeah, fair.
Right. So, like, if that is the case, that even if it's like good for a week, I'm like, well, that's sweet. Although that's a lot of bottles to get through in a week. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But if this is going to last me 6 weeks and I'm just going to put it in the fridge, like, got wine on tap.
I want an update to let us know how long it actually lasts you.
Well, I'm hopefully going to speckle in some sort of like friend gathering in the next 2 weeks. I mean, Carter and Chloe got a birthday party next weekend for Logan, so maybe I'll just bring this to Kids Kingdom and just like fucking tap it, you know?
Tap it. Bring it in your car. Just, I got something in the trunk,
Yeah,
friends.
I got some solo cups and a
Yeah.
box of Wayne Gretzky here,
I was
ready
gonna say,
for the
bring your
birthday party.
Stanleys.
It's weird though. The birthday party is at 10:15, so not
Yeah,
sure
it's
if it'll be
aggressive. That's not
appropriate.
appropriate
Okay, whatever.
on many
Anyways,
levels.
okay, enough of the Wayne Gretzky wine.
Yeah,
What's
okay, so the show, morning show, such a good show. It's all based on a newscaster, which is Jennifer Aniston, and a co-host, and he gets accused of sexual misconduct and gets fired. So it's very reminiscent of what's happening in the world.
I
And
might have
then
watched this. I might have watched
it's
this.
really good. And then Reese Witherspoon comes in as this like little spitfire, ends up joining as a co-host. And then I think it's 3 or 4 seasons. I'm still in the first season, but it's just like this wild ride of what it's like to get canceled, what it's like when you get accused of something, the realization that he did things that were wrong,
Isn't
like
it
his
Steve Carell?
denial.
The
What?
guy, isn't it Steve Carell?
Pull your mic up. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I said, isn't it Steve
Yeah,
Carell?
it's Steve Carell. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I have seen this. Yeah, we
So
enjoyed it.
good.
Gary and I watched it. Yeah.
Did you only watch one season or did you watch a few?
No, I expect we watched all like, we usually blow through everything, but is there a latest season
I
out?
don't know, I'm only on season 1. I'm probably late to the game, so
If we'd have watched it, we'd have watched whatever was available when we watched it, and that I
okay.
expect that was probably last year because
So,
it's familiar.
yeah, I don't know if there's a new one or not, you should check, but I'm, like, loving it. I find it so good.
Yeah, I do recall watching that. Actually, a really good series.
Yeah.
You know what I'm watching? Funny enough, like you're watching the morning show. I'm watching right now the Newsroom.
What's the
Um,
newsroom?
Katie's the one who had recommended it to me like a week or so ago. It's like all about a news station. They do the nightly news and then they switch from being just like reporting anything and having political biases to just reporting on the facts and like doesn't matter who they piss off and everything.
Oh,
But
what's
it's
that
kind of
on?
what is it on, Katie? Do you know? Crave, she said.
Okay,
Or HBO, she said. I've been streaming it anyways.
okay.
But Gary and
We
I are
don't
like
endorse that,
5.
so
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Uh, Gary and I are like 5 episodes in, and we both are actually really enjoying it. And then some things I'm like, "Whoa, like, this is complicated." Like, they talk about newsy political things. I'm like, "Oh, I don't think I understand, Gary."
You're like, "Where's my wine box?
Yeah, maybe
Where's
I'm
my
learning.
wine box?"
I'm attempting to learn at the same time. It's not like me just rotting my brain out, with, like, the Mariah Carey World Tour
Yeah,
from
I don't watch any of
2016.
those things. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge fan of Mariah Carey. Like, I probably shouldn't admit that, but I'm not.
Her series that I think it was from 2016 I was watching it from, it's on Hayu. Anyways, I watch it because I was really running out of stuff, and Gary's like, "Wow, you must be desperate," you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, "Yeah, it's an interesting little series. It's odd." I would maybe encourage people to watch it just to be like, "What the hell?"
But I think she is odd. It's like the Paris Hilton documentaries of, like,
Yeah.
how she met her like, I feel like so many celebrities are just odd because their world is so fucking different than a normal person.
Yeah, and she's, like, cooking and baking and doing stuff, like, in, like, lingerie constantly, and no one's allowed to mention her birthday or her age because, like, she's so,
Yeah.
like, paranoid of, like, getting older and that. Anyways, it's like, there's some weird stuff in it, but yeah, that's my trash that I watch.
Yeah, my trash was like Southern Charm.
I haven't been on it lately,
Oh,
but I started it for a bit and then I kinda got unhooked, but maybe I'll have to rehook because it's still going strong.
it really is. My favorite character, is Madison. She's just, like, hilarious.
Yeah, yeah,
She's
I know
married
exactly
now.
which one.
Anyways,
The little
it's good.
blonde.
This is our apparently wine time and
Oh,
what to binge
sorry.
on TV talk.
What to binge on TV. So, yeah, we've got the morning show, we got the newsroom,
Yeah,
like,
the
we're
other great one actually is, Lessons in Chemistry on Prime.
yeah,
It's
I'm gonna
so
start
good.
watching that. That's good, eh?
Yeah, I really like it.
I know Katie had mentioned that to me too when we were
Yeah, it's
on a
really good.
car ride home from work, so I was taking all
Oh,
my
your little
notes on the
bonding
shows.
time.
Our bonding time, yes. We like to bond once in a while going into work. It's always, like, perks my day a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I think it perks both you, especially in that cold, beautiful winter of yours.
Ugh, ugh, so gross, so disgusting here, but it's gonna get warm next week, and apparently the rest of the winter is meant to be average of, like, I don't know, -2 or
That's
something.
insane.
I know, but amazing, right? Like,
Yeah,
everyone's like,
enjoy.
"Oh, the canal." I'm like, "Fuck the canal, who
Yeah.
cares?" Like, who cares? Nobody wants this -20 business, like, I'm not having this. That's
Oh, the
depressing.
canal. Go to a skating rink, you know? Just do
Oh,
laps.
and you know what? Weren't you saying we were gonna do a topic on, like, trying to deal with the winter blues
We're
and,
gonna
like
do that next week.
oh my god, like, I feel like I need it. And me
Well,
hearing that the weather's not gonna be that bad makes me feel better, but then what if it was gonna be -20
I
for
know,
3 months
and it still
straight?
could. This could be a bait and switch. It's like the
Oh,
early
don't.
spring.
Don't even do that from your lovely office in Arizona where
No,
it's
it's
sunny and bright.
raining and cold here today.
Ew, gross. Yeah, that sucks too.
Yeah, you know. Okay, well, let's have it that. Drink your box wine. Cheers.
Yeah,
Love
man.
ya. Thanks for the live pour. It took about 5 minutes.
I thought you just said live porn. I was like, well, we didn't go that far. We went with a live pour, Pour,
Well,
friends.
that's like my slurring of the words.
Woo!
Yeah. Okay, and with that, live pour. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to
Bye.
you.